Hello and welcome to the Bearded Tits podcast. I'm your host, Chat Perks, and this week I'm going to be talking to Billy Heaney, who is a wildlife presenter and zoologist. But before we get to him, we're going to cover the news. Now, this is going to be relatively old news by the time you listen to this, but I feel like it's worth mentioning Boris and newts. Quite simply, what a load of bollocks. So Boris Johnson recently said newt counting delays are a massive drag on prosperity of this country. Basically, he's blaming the people who survey newts taking too long to build housing. And on the face of it, great crested newts can be locally common in Britain, but over the course of Europe are rare. So a lot of people cite that this law is not really relevant to the UK, because if you look on a European scale, the newts are rare, but if you look on a local British scale, they can be quite abundant. However, if you look into the issue, it's complicated. It's not as simple as that. Now, apparently the problem is that developers are often too fixated on three-bedroom properties in the £400,000 price bracket, whose releases on the market can be staggered to guarantee a steady stream of buyers. It's this more than anything that slows things down. They don't want to release cheaper properties and they don't want to do them too expensive. They want to do it around that mark where they can sell them. So the newts are really a scapegoat, something that enough people have heard about newts slowing down property. So it's an easy thing for Boris to blame. Now, obviously, with Brexit, people are like, okay, then we don't need to listen to these European laws because of the newts. And yes, great crested newts are legally protected. But the way we implement that legislation regularly changes. So last year, for instance, the government announced a great fanfare that it was streamlining the whole process of issuing newt licences so that developers can get to work more quickly. So Boris Johnson didn't refer to that when he did this speech, even though he was a part of all of that. So it's kind of convenient for him to negate what he's already been a part of. We should celebrate the fact that the UK has large numbers of great crested newts, and they are incredible creatures, and they are certainly worthy of our protection. So I think it's a shame that they're sort of being spearheaded as the villains of the economy, when arguably, without getting too political, there's a lot of other things that are causing the economy to not do so well. Anyway, less newts and Boris Johnson. Let's talk more about another man with B at the beginning of his name, Billy Heaney. Now, as I mentioned, Billy is a zoologist and a broadcaster, and I'm going to talk a little bit about his career in natural history and particularly his affinity for marine mammals. So, Billy, thanks for joining me, buddy.
Thanks for having me on. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I've got this kind of blank back. I mean, you won't see this if you're listening to the podcast, but I've got a blank kind of wall behind me because I'm meant to be decorating, and I've snuck off for another podcast. So I'm quite liking the excuse of skiving off work for an hour to chat to people.
Top way of doing it. That's the best way to get out of the chores.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on, more excuses as time goes on. I think we should start at the beginning with you. So you started off in Falmouth, but you were on an Exeter course. Because Exeter University is at Falmouth or some kind of weird...
Yeah, so we have, it always gets nice and confusing. So as much as Exeter main campus is in Devon with the Streatham campus, where I went to study my zoology degree back in 2012 was in Falmouth. And we share a campus with Falmouth University. So there's a really cool hub with two unis all together in a beautiful location. But yeah, there's that ongoing sort of joke of, you go to Falmouth or you go to Exeter. There's always that sort of bit of banter going on between the two. So that was good fun. But yeah, so I moved to Cornwall in 2012, where I did my first degree, became a massive beach bum. And then
straight as everyone in Falmouth was.
Yeah, exactly. Flip-flops or nothing. And then jumped straight into a postgraduate master's by research, which I did part-time for 2 and a bit years. And then sort of lived in Cornwall for a few years after that as well. So yeah, that's how it all kind of came about in a nutshell with me moving to Cornwall, yeah.
Because I guess particularly if people are at university now, what they're going to be interested in is what happened next, because there's that kind of existential crisis of you finish university and then it's like, Jesus Christ, do I end up working at Tesco or do I go on to try and do something else? It can be quite tricky.
Well, for me, it's sort of, because I finished, through third year, I was like, had that thought of like, oh, crikey, what do I do next? And I'd started my dissertation for my third year, and I was doing this cool project on grey seals in Cornwall. And whilst thinking about what else we could do with this project, I came up with another concept for it. And my supervisor at the time said, "Oh, that's more of a master's research project than a dissertation." I was like, "Well, let's do it then." And that's how and then that kind of led into the next 2.5 years of my life, or nearly 2.5, because I did it part-time. So yeah, at least I had that sort of, okay, I'm going to stay down here for a bit, and made the most of being down there. So yeah, that's kind of, and that was really cool. Spent most of my time at a computer looking at pictures of seals, unfortunately, but got to see them fairly regularly and be in the water as much as I could. Got to do some really cool things around the north coast of Cornwall and down in the Isles of Scilly as well, researching grey seals. That was epic.
It's an awesome place to live, isn't it? I was thinking the other day, the amount of successful biologists, zoologists, TV presenters, and cameramen who have been in Club I. Like it's got, it's like if for people that don't know, Club I is like a kind of shitty club in Falmouth that's basically a pub function room. It's got a carpet and it's just an experience. If Visit Falmouth should just have Club I as its main attraction. But the amount of, I think Steve Backshaw's been in there. Didn't some people take him? Is that or was that a rumor?
Yeah,
do you hear that?
Yeah, no, you can't. It's one of the places where you walk in and leave your shoes at the door, isn't it? It's. But no, yeah, I think he did unfortunately get dragged in there. I bumped into him that night in Beowulf before.
Okay, Beowulf's nice.
Yeah, and because what was really sort of dumb on my behalf, what was accidental, was that he came in to do a lecture, and this would have been in my second year, so crikey, this is a long time ago now. And I was wearing a black T-shirt with a white silhouette orca on it. And then he walked down and he was wearing a black T-shirt with a white silhouetted shark on it. Yeah, so I was in like the 5th row, and then all my mates like digging me on the arm, like going like, "Well done, Muppet, you look like a massive fangirl." Anyway, but we had a chat, and then when I bumped into him in the pub later, he remembered and he said hello. But I was like, "Have a good one, because you ain't going to escape this one easily tonight," because there's just like all these like undergrad students. So I was like, gave him a clink on the glass and left him to it. I was like, "Have a good one, see ya."
I was in Falmouth in February, and I did a lecture at the university, some of the marine natural history students, and myself and Josh Jaggard, and then we went out later we ended, one thing led to another. We ended up in Mango Tango's about 4 a.m. or whenever it was.
She did.
And this M&HP student came up to me and Josh, and he was like, "Oh, I really enjoyed the lecture. I think you guys are great." And we tried to say, "Look, this isn't the time to network. Like, I appreciate you coming up, but this isn't the time. I've got one eye shut. I'm dribbling in the corner. Like, let's, chat to me tomorrow." But yeah, it's a great. I love Falmouth. Any excuse to go back down there. It's a very.
That sounds like our night in the beer festival last autumn. Do you remember that one?
No.
Probably don't. I didn't think you would.
No, didn't you say I kept saying hello to you about 4 times? I kept bumping into you.
I think you thought you saw me for the first time about 4 times that night. That was quite entertaining. In the end, it just became sport for me. I was just like, let's see if he does it again.
I should just say that I'm not an alcoholic. I know that's the first thing an alcoholic would say, but I very rarely drink now. I'll just go large when I do.
That was fun. That was a good night.
Oh, great stuff. Where are you based now? Because you're not in Falmouth now, are you?
No, so I'm currently in Gloucestershire in a beautiful little place called Waterley Bottom.
Oof, cheeky.
Yeah, it is a bit cheeky, and it is in the back end of nowhere. So basically, me and my girlfriend, we moved out of our flat in February and thought, right, time to get off the beach and try and get a proper job, basically, and make a career. So we thought, okay, well, we'll move up to Bristol, because I don't want to go back to the London ends, because I don't want to do that. So yeah, initially we thought, okay, for February, March, we'll be at her mum and dad's whilst we find a new place and, just have a bit of a stepping stone. Obviously, that didn't go to plan, with certain words and certain phrases that we won't dwell on, and ended up spending lockdown here. But we're in a very pretty place. I mean, it's very remote, but the wildlife has just been fantastic, and it kept me motivated and kept me out of trouble and mischief, to be honest. So yeah, no, I mean, deepest, darkest Gloucestershire at the minute.
Oh, brilliant. Now, you're a general naturalist, but I suppose cetaceans and marine mammals are your bread and butter. That's kind of what you really are into.
Yeah, they're definitely my main bag. Sort of professionally with research sense, absolutely. Marine vertebrates with more focus of marine mammals for sure. They're my first love. I've been obsessed with whales and dolphins and seals and all sorts since I was a toddler. And then, yeah, that passion for them is what basically got me into the whole natural world in general. So most of my adventures and journeys usually revolve around trying to find something with a dorsal fin, to be honest.
What is it about them? What was it that kind of enthuses you?
Well, they just mesmerize me. I find them very captivating, and it's just their intelligence as well. I find really fascinating. It's just how clever these, particularly cetaceans and sort of the dolphin family, how intelligent they are. And it's just something about that, you know, you can't see them all the time. So they're a bit more of a tease, because I've had some amazing encounters, don't get me wrong, but I've spent hours, days on the water and seen nothing. So it's just like, I think with cetaceans and marine mammals, obviously there's some areas where, you know, like with a seal haul out, for instance, you know, you're pretty much guaranteed. Like if you go at the right time of year and the right tidals, the reward is massive. But you got to put your arm and you put your sort of legwork in to get there, sort of thing. So yeah, so they really sort of captivated me, and yeah, I've spent any money that I earned working in a pub or, you know, working in a car park or whatever, I usually spent on, right, where am I going to go to try and track down a new beastie kind of thing. And that's kind of what I've been doing. Obviously not this year, but the last few years, that's what I've been quite lucky to do.
Because you mentioned the intelligence of them, because they're up there with apes, aren't they? Or nearly. They're very smart, and people, you know, just think of them as a stupid fish-looking thing, but they're incredibly smart animals, aren't they?
Massively. It's particularly like sort of, I think, particularly orca and bottlenose dolphins. There's something about those two, to me, that really stands out. So I like to, this is probably the wrong way of saying it, but I quite like to think that the bottlenose dolphins are like the velociraptor of the dolphin world. They're like
Okay.
stupidly clever. And like, so here's a story of this. So for instance, it's like I used to work on a wildlife tour boat in Falmouth. So I spent a lot of time watching common dolphin, Rizzo's dolphin, and bottlenose dolphin down there. And Rizzo's dolphin are just a whole other, we'll come back to them because they're just phenomenal. But common dolphins were great, but I often found that when they were swimming around, they're playing and everything, but they weren't that. It was weird because I found they're super intelligent, but it was very different when the bottlenose were around the boat, because they were more checking you out more often than not than you were checking them out. They're always looking at you. And I often found, like, when you looked at them, you could tell someone was home. It was just a bit of a weird thing, because they proper eyeballed you if you were that close on the bow of a boat. And it kind of looks through you. And I had this one evening where we'd been out on a trip, and it was just after, I remember this, it was like second year of uni. We just finished it. I finished my exams and I managed to go out on an evening trip. And we hadn't really seen much. And we're coming back into Falmouth past St. Anthony's Lighthouse. And we're coming back in, and all of a sudden, without a splash, without a ripple, two bottlenose dolphins, it was like something out of Top Gun, came out of nowhere onto the bow of the boat, either side. They were ahead of us and just came in on us like two jet fighter pilots. And we had no idea they were there until they were boom on us. And it was just like the way they can creep up on you. And this is a nearly 4 meter long animal.
I was going to say they're big, aren't they? People don't realise how big. But I saw the ones at Channery Point. I was like, "Fucking hell, that's a big animal!" You know,
they're a big mammal. Yeah, so the ones in Channery Point and that North Sea population are the biggest bottlenose in the world, and the ones we get in southwest Cornwall, you know, they're not that much smaller, to be honest. So yeah, they're anywhere from like fully grown 3.5 to 4 meters. So it's a big animal. And then they came on the bow of the boat, sort of eyeballing you, and then they went under. And all of a sudden, and I've got Pendennis Castle to my left, St. Anthony's to the right. Sounds like a song. And then this bottlenose, it just completely breached. Now I'm at the front of the boat trying to get my camera up, you know, and it happened all in slow mo. And you're like, oh God, I'm going to miss it. And then this bottlenose jumped straight up, and it kind of went completely horizontal. And I just remember eyeballing it. And it was probably 20 yards in front of the boat. And it seemed to hover. It was one of those experiences where everything went in slow motion. And it hovered, and as it went back down, I managed to get a shot of it completely vertical, diving back into the water. And then another time we had a group of bottlenose, and the same, there's about 33 in the community that go around Cornwall in the southwest, and there's a few nicks in the fins where you can ID them. And it would have been the same group, were off Mayenporth, and they were like playing with a barrel jellyfish and just throwing this jellyfish out of the water, just batting it with their heads and their rostrums. And I had my GoPro on a 2 meter metal pole, and I was leaning over the side of the boat, and the pole wasn't touching the boat, and I had my arms out, and all of a sudden I had this vibration go all the way up through my arm and into my back. And I looked down, I was like, okay, well, I'm not touching the boat. So there's no vibration coming from the boat. And what I'm pretty sure happened is the bottlenose echolocated and it hit the camera, went up the pole.
Oh, wow.
I'm pretty sure that's what happened because nothing else could have made it vibrate, but because I could hear them clicking from underneath the water. So that was pretty phenomenal.
Because you can feel it, because obviously you've been in the water with a few different cetaceans, but when they do that, particularly if they're close, you can feel it in your rib cage, can't you? I mean, especially whales, I guess, but I suppose dolphins as well.
Yeah, there's those stories of divers that have had particularly a sperm whale, which is obviously the largest echolocating thing in the world. Yeah, with them clicking, it like goes straight through you, it makes your whole body sort of vibrate. Yeah, and when we were, I had a great experience I was swimming with wild dusky dolphins in New Zealand. And yeah, hearing them underwater and the clicking. It was quite a choppy day, so it was a lot of extra sound of the waves breaking and stuff. But yeah, that was a magical experience. And with that, it's sort of the tour company that I went out with, they've done their research with the dolphins. So they only allow people to go out so the duskies feed at night and they rest in the early mornings and the late evenings. So they never go out to see them during those important times of their day so that they don't, get stressed out and stuff like that. So that was really magical. And I then found out that, the dusky dolphin's favorite song is Africa by Toto, because you meant to make sound. Good choice. And you need a beat that you can do through a snorkel. So the do for a snorkel, mate. That is cutting to a dusky dolphin.
I'll remember that if I'm in New Zealand and I want to see dusky dolphins. I'll bang out some 80s power ballads.
Yeah, they love a power ballad. They do.
So you mentioned you worked for a wildlife cruise company. I mean, that must have been an awesome experience.
It was great. So I worked for AK Wildlife Cruises, so voluntary and a little bit of, like paid work as well. But most of it was just voluntary as an undergrad. And I did spend a few summers going out most days. I've lost count of how many trips I've done. So and that was great because I was like a dream come true, just go out the weekends or even sometimes after a lecture, if the dolphins were coming through, which didn't happen often, but he was like, had a report that the bottlenose were there. A few of us would just leg it out to get some pictures kind of thing. But when we were running trips, we'll take anywhere. Maximum we could take was 12 people. Okay. So nothing too big group size. It was a really nice boat, and yeah, had some absolutely magical experiences over nearly 8 years, really.
What was the success rate like? Like, would you ever have days and you'd see bugger all, or did you normally see something?
Oh yes. Yeah, I remember the success. It was weird because in some periods you'd see dolphins every day, and in other periods I went out and like you'd be lucky if you saw a gannet, like one gannet. It just kind of, I think sometimes it depends on the conditions with the weather and obviously visibility, because things could have been there, but if there's a bit of a chop or the visibility is not great, then things can sneak past you a bit more. And obviously and if there's been like a burst of fish, like if there's loads of shoals in the bay, then obviously more things are going to be coming in. So lots of different factors. I remember one particular day we were out for like 4 hours and sort of like nothing. Even like the goals were like, stuff this, I'm going home. And like, it was just like a really long day. And you're sort of trying to keep the guests engaged. And like, sometimes around here we get harbor porters, or sometimes the commandant, you're sort of trying to pull out all the strings like, come on. But then other days it's just been like an episode of Blue Planet out there. With like minke whales coming up on bait fish, with Manx shearwaters coming in, gannets diving in, common dolphins. And last summer and the summer before, saw quite a few bluefin tuna coming out as well, which was
okay.
Which was epic. So I think it was sometime last August. We spotted a work up on the horizon, gannets going absolutely mental, and that's always so exciting when you see gannets diving in from a long way off, because more often than not, there's got to be something underneath the bait fish pushing them up, whether it's porpoises, bluefin tuna, dolphins. Sometimes it can just be the birds and there's nothing obvious, but because it could be just larger predatory fish that aren't going to break the surface. Yeah, usually if you get a big workup, you're at least thinking there's common dolphins out there. So we got out there and I was on the bow of the boat taking pictures of the dolphins and the gannets going mental. And all of a sudden, maybe 10, 15 yards off to my left-hand side, way too close and way too quick with the lens that I had on my camera, this bluefin tuna just went bang, and just right in front of me. And I was just like, ah! And yeah, just absolutely phenomenal. But one of the best things I ever saw was actually on my birthday a long time ago. I think it was my 20th, a long time ago now. Oh dear, makes me feel old. Is a minke. We had a minke whale off the Rosen Peninsula. We weren't that far off the coast, to be honest. And it surfaced. It sort of broke the surface a few times, load, and then went down. And there's about 5 or 6 of us on the bow of this boat, looking around, thinking, "Where's he going to pop up?" All of a sudden, this white silhouette went underneath the boat. And basically, a minke whale is white on its belly, and it basically looked like a beluga had swum underneath us. But what it was the minke whale upside down, swimming underneath the bow of the boat, and then it turned and surfaced like right next to the boat, and then went off again. And we're all just like, "Oh my god!" You could just see the whole thing happening, and then just lots of beers were consumed that night.
Yeah, I bet. We've got Tom Horton coming on the podcast soon, actually, because he's Mr. Tuna, isn't he?
He is Tuna Tom, for sure.
So, yeah, I've got kind of look forward to waffling about tuna with him. So, out of all these cetaceans and things that you've seen, is there a favourite? Is there one that stands above the rest for you?
Absolutely. So I'm a massive orca dork.
That's a bit of a common answer. Surely everyone says orca.
It is, but I'll come back to my other one in a minute. But that was because, for me, how it all began, it's going to sound really corny, and I said this to Sue Perkins back in February, was I watched Free Willy when I was like 2 as a baby, and I was a bit of a loud babe, funnily enough, baby that didn't really shut up or sit still. Yeah, me, loud, didn't sit still. And that was the first thing that made me shut up for an hour and a half, I think. So when my mum realised, he's like, "Oh, he likes dolphins and killer whales. We put those on the screen and he'll sit still." So yeah, it was like my childhood dream was to be able to go watch killer whales in the wild, which came true when I was 21, 22 maybe. A couple of mates of mine, Callum and Rich, we booked a week in Iceland. Just went for a road trip, went chasing waterfalls, even though you're told not to. And then went in search, and we did a couple of boat trips, and then we saw orca with like frozen fjords around us. It was just phenomenal, and I was lucky to see a few of them in Canada as well.
You made a film about that, didn't you? Isn't there a film out there?
Yeah. I did a little sort of road trip. It's very rough and ready around the edges. It was like my first proper film that I made that weren't just little, holiday montages kind of thing. It was like actually my first little mini documentary kind of thing. It got shortlisted in the film competition, which was fun. And that was just absolutely breathtaking. And we saw a huge bull, massive dorsal fin, and the matriarch, and there was a newborn calf that still had like the brownie patches, because when obviously orcas have the white markings with the saddle patch and above the eyes and stuff. But when they're born, their blubber is thinner and the blood vessels run nearer the surface, which gives them a slightly muddier browny reddy colour. So it was teeny tiny calf that was probably only like couple of weeks old. That was magic. But I think other than that, without going for the usual common one,
there's a lot of funny named cetaceans. There's like I'm trying to like bride's toothed donkey whale or something like that.
The beaked whales are just a whole different ballgame. And what's crazy is that we've got species of beaked whale that have been identified, and no one's seen them alive. They've just been washed up on a beach, or a bit of them's been washed up on a beach. It's never been. So yeah, the beaked whales, I've never seen one, but there's not many people that have seen all of them anyway. That's like you've got to spend a lot of time out at sea, because there's such deep dive animals that don't really spend a lot of time on the surface. But I think other than the orca, I was very lucky to see blue whales off the coast of Sri Lanka a few years ago, which was magic. And other than that, I think maybe the Hector's dolphins in New Zealand, the other species I saw there, that's probably up there.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to remember those ones, because you saw a couple of species, didn't you? Were they black and white, but they're quite small as well, or is that the other one?
Yeah, they're kind of like a light grey with black stripes, with black. They've got like a little black marking on their belly, and their nickname is the Mickey Mouse dolphin, because they have a circular, sort of a semicircle of the dorsal fin, which is like Mickey Mouse did. Unfortunately, they're quite rare now, but there's 2 subspecies. You've got the Mammals dolphin, which is around the North Island of New Zealand, and there's like less than 50 left. And then the Hector's dolphin, which lives around the South Island, and there's about 9,000 left. But sort of the big problem that they've got is they're really small, and they live coastal, and they live in sort of estuaries as well, or like river mouths. You can imagine the Helford River in Cornwall, where we spent a lot of time. There's, how I like to describe where I went, Akaroa is like the Helford, but with mountains. So there's like beautiful turquoise water and tiny little dolphins that are like, they're they're like this big. They're tiny. And unfortunately, they get caught as bycatch quite a lot with coastal nets. And that's sort of a real big problem, is that they're getting pulled out accidentally at quite scary rates, to be honest. But that was, well, it was treading water as they were just swimming around. It was beautiful.
Yeah, incredible species. So I remember seeing you pop up on Nature Watch, which was sort of a homage to Spring Watch, wasn't it? And that was a group of students put that together. So how did that all start? Because you were involved from the inception, is that right? Or did you come in a little bit later?
I was in the first meeting. I remember this because there was a group of us. So I remember being in the first meeting when it sort of the brainstorming came about. And then that was at the end of my second year. And in the third year, my time management was pants. And I was, unfortunately, I didn't get involved in the first season, just the first series, just because I was trying to do my third year. And I had a few other things going on, and I just wasn't very good at time management back then, so I didn't get involved. But once I started my part-time masters, in the first year, I probably took part-time a little bit too literally, because I had a lot to do in the second year. I got involved in the second series and came on board and came on as presenter. It was fantastic to work. It was such a great sort of project because you had like the team from Falmouth with all the photography skills. I mean, a lot of the extra students had that, and vice versa with the wildlife knowledge. It was kind of a nice sort of crossover between the photographers and filmmakers that were dab hands with kit, but also knew a lot, and vice versa across. So it was just a really great group of people. And we got to talk about some great Cornish wildlife and make some really fun films, which was really good fun.
It seems to have been a bit of a breeding ground for kind of people's careers as well, because you look at things like Pete Cooper and Lizzie Daly and a few others who worked on that, and then they've actually gone on to work on actual Spring Watch or other natural history programs. So
Russell as well, and a few of the others.
Yeah, of course.
And it's just great because I'm still in touch with all of them, and it's kind of that was brilliant to sort of get stuff on your CV, get experience. And I've actually had meetings with different producers and just chats. Nothing's ever come of it properly, but I've had chats with people within the industry, and they're watching it. So if anyone's on Nature Watch now, keep going because people watch it. So you never know what might happen if you're doing it. So that's quite exciting.
They definitely take notice of stuff like that because it's potential talent for later on. Well, I'm going to end on this last question, buddy. Anyway, so you've used remote cameras a lot for your conservation work, and particularly with grey seals as part of your masters. I think that's right. You've used tram cams for that. So why are trail cams such an important tool for conservation?
Oh, it's such a good question. Well, on the face of it, people are lazy. I mean this in a nice way, because you can leave a trail camera out and it will do your work for you most of the time. Now, what trail cameras are so good for is that it's a non-invasive method for a start. So you can put a camera on a tree in a really remote place, and you don't need to worry about, I mean, you can get super duper fancy ones, don't get me wrong, but if you're just using sort of your normal battery powered trail camera, you can tie it to a tree or a rock in a remote place, and you don't need to worry about getting a satellite dish up to get your data. You just got to go back every couple of weeks or a month to check it. So we use them in a way that they probably haven't really been designed for, because we use them on a Pinniped haul-out beach in North Cornwall. So rather than them being triggered by the sensor, which you can use a time-lapse function where you program the cameras to take a picture at a set interval. So I had the cameras programmed with the University of Exeter to take a picture every 5 minutes, every hour of every day during daylight hours. So you can imagine the amount of pictures that I had to trawl through. And unfortunately, quite a wide angle, so the seals look like slugs more than seals, because they're just like little furry blobs. But so what we used them to do was look at their haul-out use across seasons, across tidal cycles, and we used the data that I got from the counts to link it to human disturbance. We had a footfall count to look at the number of people on the site, and we did that to model different things about how they respond to different variables and stuff like that. But camera traps in general, you can, especially in the last couple of years, they've come on leaps and bounds with the technology. I've recently, this year, I bought 2 of the Brown Wrecking Force Edges, and the step up from cameras that I used 4 years ago is fantastic. You get
I think I might have bought that one recently. I bought a Browning something or other, and the quality is,
fantastic.
You can pick them up from Aldi or Lidl, I think, and they're like a potato. Yeah. Like if you just want to know there's an animal in your garden, fair enough. But I mean,
film a hedgehog with a toaster.
Pretty much this shite, aren't they? But the Browning one is, I really, sound like I'm plugging them. I'm not sponsored by them, but they're really good, really, really good.
No, and quite and for a piece of kit, the ones I bought, obviously everything adds up. But when you think in a camera kit, it's very reasonable. It's £170.
Yeah.
When you're thinking of like camera kit, that's cheap. When in the
It's
grand
not
scheme
bad
of
at
things.
all.
It's not bad at all. Obviously, everything adds up, and I had to save up to get them. But it's for the price that they are, I'm very, very impressed. I mean, they do another one now that's like 300 or 400 that films in 4K, but we'll save that for a later day. But what you can get from the images and the video, particularly with sort of animals like tigers, for instance, is animals that have unique markings, particularly the stripes of a tiger. Let's use that example. Is you can use that to ID individuals and build up population surveys. If you had like a number of camera traps set up over a national park, for instance, in Burma or somewhere in India, you can get like population density estimates from the number of individuals that you're seeing, and sort of look at territory sizes and home ranges, who's interacting with who, and all that kind of stuff. And also like presence and presence and absence data. So if you're doing a survey in a woodland, seeing what species are moving past. And something that I've just been doing with Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust, which has been great, is they're using camera traps to monitor pine martens that have been reintroduced to the forest of Dean. And I've been doing that for the last 6 weeks, and I've sort of teamed up with them, and I'm leaving. Excuse me, I'm leaving one of my cameras there for the summer just to build up a bank of data and sort of high quality images that they can use. And it just means I can have a little spy on a pine marten with teaming up with the Forest of Dean project. Obviously, I've had permission to do that, so that's what's fun.
Have you picked any up yet?
Yeah,
yeah,
awesome. And yeah, we've got some really nice stuff with the pine martens, and been very lucky that on 2 occasions over 6 weeks, for about 5 seconds, saw a pine marten like run across a footpath or something like that. So I've actually managed to get a glimpse. Too slow with the camera to actually get a proper picture. But yeah, no, amazing little critters. And yeah, I've kind of gone from marine mammals to then being locked in the countryside to going from marine mammals to mustelids, and I've kind of got like a little bit obsessed with like badgers and pine martens and stuff like that. So no, it's been a good little, and the camera traps have enabled me to do that. So yeah, as a bit of a passion project, I've been using my camera traps to monitor the badger family that lives behind the house. So that's been fantastic as well.
There's such an incredible piece of kit, aren't there? I mean, I used to have a crap one, got a slightly better one now, and I just put it down my where I used to live. So I've just moved house, but down by the river, and we're getting muntjac deer, which I'd never seen there before, badgers, and I was like, where is all this wildlife in the day? It's mental.
Yeah, it is crazy, and it's like this little corridor that I have behind the house. There's like a field where people are grazing some sheep at the minute, and then there's a little belt of woodland. And there's like, as the woodland starts, there's a little patch of scrub that borders from field. It goes to a little bit of scrub, which is probably only like 4 meters across, and then it goes into the woodland. And there it's like we got roe deer using the corridor, muntjac using the corridor, foxes, badgers, squirrels, rabbits, and then one occasion I'm pretty sure I got the arse end of a polecat, but it literally was nice. It was very, very quick. The camera was a little bit slow then. And yeah, I checked the camera that I've got up there yesterday, and I had the first time I've caught the baby roe deer kid on camera. It was only a brief, but I could still see the spots of the stripes of its like young sort of markings. So that was really nice.
They're cool pieces of kit. Well, look, Billy, it's been great talking to you as always, and I will catch you in Club I at some point, I'm sure.
Thank you very much for having me on, mate. Yeah, I'm very lucky. I'm actually going to Cornwall on Saturday.
How are you?
Very excited. It's all legal and legit, self-catered house that we managed to book, and it's all come off. So yeah, I'll see you there Thursday week.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm far too old to be in Club I now. I say that, I mean, I probably will at some point, but Jesus Christ. Look, take care, mate.
Cheers, mate. Andrew, see you soon.
That was Billy Heaney telling us a little bit about his career and some of the amazing marine mammal encounters that he has had. Now, this brings me on to Nature Reserve of the Week, and I'm going to cover Bass Rock. Now, it's an island in the outer part of the Firth of Forth in the east of Scotland. And the island undoubtedly is one of the best places in the world to see northern gannets. It's got 150,000 northern gannets breeding there. It's the world's largest colony for the species. Now, as well as gannets, it also has guillemots, razorbill, shag, puffin, eider, and numerous gulls, not to mention seals and marine mammals that you can see on the way to the island. Now, if you're into plants, it also has bass mallow, which is otherwise only found on a few other islands in the area. So there's some botanical things to check out as well. Now in North Buick is the Scottish Seabird Centre, which is an independent charity and has exclusive rights to boat trips over to the island, so it's the only way that you can get there. I actually think I've been there. I say think because I was around 8 or 9, and I remember going to Edinburgh, and I went on a day trip somewhere and I sniffed some gannet shit at a centre, and I can only assume it must have been the Scottish Seabird Centre. I don't know where I'd be sniffing gannet poo elsewhere, but I do vaguely remember going somewhere and doing that. It's one of those places, I've never been to Bass Rock, but I'd love to go, and I'm told it is a phenomenal place to get close to northern gannets and see them in a new and exciting way. I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. What I would say is, if you're enjoying it, do check out the highlights on the Wildlife Exposed YouTube channel. You can see all the highlights and the video chats between me and the guests on there. We also have a Twitter account now, which is @TipBearded, where everything is kind of posted on there. And as always, if you've got any questions, if you've got any guests you want to get on the podcast, then send them in and we'll answer them, and we'll try and do them at the end of them. I hope you've enjoyed it. This has been the Bearded Tits Podcast. I've been your host, Jack Perks, and I will catch you in the next one. Cheers.